no heavy lift, but wanted to remind you, and I'll talk about it again, we are going to meet on Monday. We do have a bill hearing. But for today, we will have a presentation on the new soy bean processing facility at Cherryvale. And so I believe we'll start, I guess you're both going to do some of the presenting. We have Bill Webster, who is the Vice President for Bartlett Grain, Dustin DeVard. So, gentlemen, welcome to committee. And whoever wants to lead off, and then we'll go, and then we'll have questions after the presentations are over. Thanks.
My name's Dustin Bavard. I'm Vice President of Bartlett Grain. I lead our crushing operations in Southeast Kansas. I've been with the company for about 15 years, headquartered in Kansas City there, working with our commercial and trading team, as well as many of our operations around the state. Excited to be here today to give you a quick overview of our crush business in Southeast Kansas, pictured here on the first slide of the handout that I would believe was provided to you. Excuse me. So a quick history on Bartlett Grain. Not sure how familiar all of you are with us, but we're an over 100-year-old privately held company, and through our 3 divisions of grain, milling, and processing, we own and operate 20 grain handling facilities across North America. We have 3 flour milling facilities and then the 1 soybean processing facility there in Southeast Kansas. The next slide shows you a good footprint of our geography and our assets across the region. Our grain handling assets are really centered in the heart of production area in the central United States. Kansas is our largest state or footprint by asset facility count, as you can see there. We have the 3 flour mills, 1 in Southeast Kansas as well, in the city of Coffeyville, Kansas, which sends hard wheat flour and spring wheat flour to bakeries and food processors in the Southeast and Eastern United States. We've also got the 2 flour mills in North Carolina, one of the fastest growing population bases in the United States. And then you can see some of our demand points, and we'll get into these a little bit more later on down the spine of Mexico, where we connect to growers in Kansas and Missouri and Iowa and Illinois and rail products down into Mexico, providing further demand points for all of the United States growers. And then our processing facility there in Southeast Kansas overlaps in Montgomery County there with our flour mill, as you can see. The next slide gives a quick overview of our soybean processing facility. We started operations, last September 19th, and we've really kind of hit our stride going into October and November, fully operational today. At capacity, the facility will process around 50 million bushels of soybeans per year, and through that process will produce over 500 million pounds of soybean oil, around 1 million tons of soybean meal, and around 75,000 tons of soybean hulls. Just to put that into perspective, 1 million tons of soybean meal provides food rations for around 100 million chickens annually, and the 75,000 tons of soybean hulls provides rations for around 60,000 head of cattle annually as well. So when you talk about Kansas farmers making an impact on the food supply chain really in the United States and across the world, I think that's very good representation of how impactful Kansas and regional farmers are, as well as the processing facilities in the state. As we look at the facility itself, very robust logistically. It has around 25,000 feet of track space on site. We can both load and unload soybean meal and soybean trains simultaneously. We produce around a 100-car unit of soybean meal every 3 days at the site, so mass production facility when it comes to feedstuffs coming off of the site there as well. When it came to site selection for this project, we did our due diligence. I know Bill Webster will get into it a little bit more, looking at several states in the region. We had a few key criteria that we wanted to focus on. Obviously, we needed a strong agriculture supply in the region. Kansas obviously has that. We needed a robust infrastructure network, specifically around logistics, so we needed good highway access in and out of the facility, and maybe even more crucial is the railway network that connects our facility. We are on the Watco-Skoll short line. Watco's based in Pittsburgh, Kansas, there in Southeast Kansas, and it connects us, gives us direct access to 3 of the Class 1 railroads, the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Southern, the Union Pacific, and the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And why that's crucial is it allows us to bring in soybeans from across the state and the region, as well as hit demand points on the outbound side by having that connection to the rail. Also, we needed a talented labor pool, and we're employing around 70 team members on site down there today. That's kind of been our sweet spot of very high-paying, high-quality jobs, and it's been fantastic to us. And our familiarity with the region, with our flour mill in Coffeyville, gave us confidence not only in the state of Kansas, but in that site specifically. So all that led us to Cherryvale, Kansas, and as we look at the market impacts that the facility has across the state, when we're using that many soybeans, it obviously has a large impact on the region. So we're providing a strong soybean bid to the producers in the area there in southeast Kansas and the Quad State region. We're supporting local co-ops and commercial businesses as well, providing them a year-round demand base. But also with the rail network across Kansas, it allows us to reach out into different areas of the state. So we're pulling soybeans from northeast Kansas. We're buying beans at our Great Bend facility, at our Scott City facility, out across central Kansas, and pulling from the south central part of the state as well, all coming into that region and providing a strong network and a strong demand point for farmers across the state. On the next slide, what I think that really highlights is instead of now exporting those soybeans out of the state to different areas of the United States or to different countries to be processed in different regions, we're providing a value add process in the state of Kansas and producing those different products that I mentioned, the meal, the hulls, and the oil. So what that means is we're now selling high quality, high protein feed products to local feed merchandisers, backyard poultry operations, cattle operations in the state of Kansas. And beyond that, it connects Kansas farmers to the export markets going into Mexico for poultry and feed operations down there, going to the U.S. Gulf, and going to world export, whether it be Asia, North Africa, even into Europe on some of the meal into those areas. And then on the soybean oil, many different uses there. A lot of it is going into renewable fuels, such as renewable diesel or sustainable aviation fuels, helping lower the carbon intensity of those industries by around 30% and helping them reach their stated goals. We did invest in full refining capacity so we can sell this soybean oil into human consumption, such as salad dressings, frying operations, things like that. We work closely with Tyson, Smithfield, those types of operations, and then also many industrial uses. So it really does connect the Kansas farmer, the regional farmer, to the world through that supply chain with the value-added process that we have there on site. And then finally, as we look at the site and potential future investment, a nice little old Google Earth image there. We sit on around 350 acres there. We designed the facility to be able to double our capacity when the market dictates, so we can add another 40 to 50 million bushels of crushing capacity there on site with our robust logistics network. We can add additional further processing, so specialty meal types with higher protein valuation or additional refining on the oil side. And then we do have a partner that has procured, actually owns the 150 acres that borders us to the north side, and they have plans and are shovel ready to develop a sustainable aviation fuel facility there that would produce around 20,000 barrels per day of renewable energy on site. That would be using soybean oil, agricultural waste products such as used cooking oil, tallow, distiller's corn oil, which is another product of the ethanol process. And all that to say, we're excited to be a part of the state of Kansas and the agriculture supply chain here. It's been a wonderful history for us, and more than anything, appreciate the opportunity to come in here and speak about it today.
All right, very good. And his last name is Bavard, is
Bavard.
that right?
Yes, sir.
B-E-V-A-R-D?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dustin. First of all, thanks to the committee at what is now 10 till 4. I used to be in the legislature and would sit in hearings, and so I just want to say thank you for your time this afternoon. We are very excited about this project. It's a $440 million investment. It wasn't Apex and Panasonic, but it was I think that year it was the second largest project in the state. And so we are very grateful. I might just mention how we ended up here. Kansas grows a fair amount of soybeans, although not as many in southeast Kansas as in some other parts of the state. As many of you know, I grew up about 65 miles east of this location where we built, where our crop was thistles and rocks and not much else. But we were very familiar with Montgomery County. And it was my task to go to multiple states we were going to build one of these facilities. And so the question was, where could we build it in Kansas? So I confess a bias there. Where might it be located where we could hit all three Class 1 railroads? And this led to an introduction. I called the Montgomery County Action Council, and who picked up the phone but Representative Jim Kelly. And if those of you who knew or served Jim, and he said, well, I think we should talk. How about tomorrow morning? So I drove down, and that began the process with the county commission, with the Department of Commerce, with IDOT, with KDHE, and it brought us to the conclusion that this was, with the combination of 5 roads, an area that was welcoming of this. It's a clean business, it's a green business, it's an agricultural business. This allowed us to have the support of the legislature that has had and continues to invest in infrastructure, US 160, which is critical for anybody who's in that part of the state. It hasn't been much improved in my lifetime. And so this is now at the top of the quadrant list and has been approved. Senator Moran got a $40+ million Chrisley grant, and the state participated as well. So there are $85 million in rail improvements that are not from Bartlett, but hopefully we helped create an impetus for it. And that will take you from basically Columbus, the state line to the east, and Winfield to the west. And that improves, I believe it's something like 80 bridges, high weight, heavy axle weight. So this is something that impacts the neighborhood. The state of Kansas was supportive from the beginning and said, what can we do to get you to build it here? And we did not come with a tin cup, but Kansas has a good toolkit. And I know sometimes it's a little controversial, but Kansas has a good economic development toolkit, and that helped us to proceed. It was permitted at light speed, and KDHE, it was about 6 months, but on a project like this, it's normally a year or more. So everybody was very helpful. And what the impact of this is not only the basis and the price to the producers, but it allows us to pull grain from the western part of the state, the central part of the state. We start with our neighborhood. It supports a lot of Kansas businesses, and I would just say that something approaching $200 million of the investment was with Kansas contractors and firms. Obviously the concrete, but our general contractor was from Fredonia. Our electrical contractors were from Sedgwick County, from Lenexa, locally, and our commitment from day one was we want to support the local economy. Crossland was the second general contractor on the project. So it's been a really positive experience for us. We hope that we will be able to continue. This drew the attention of a company that wants to invest in a SAF facility, sustainable aviation fuel, and that would be $1 billion investment. probably more now. And so we brought that to the state of Kansas, and that is now approved by KDHE and has received approval from the State Department of Commerce and Montgomery County Commission as well. Now, we're waiting to see what the rules are prospectively with the new administration in Washington, but this would be for a state that prides itself on agriculture and aviation, kind of a remarkable coup for the state of Kansas. So we would hope that that happens, and they are optimistic, and we are optimistic as well. So this is a result of a very proactive effort and commitment by the state to support this type of production agriculture facility. So a good day. The rest of the puzzle, and I'll stop with this if there are any questions, is having been there for now 118 years, I haven't been there the entire time. It feels that way sometimes, but many, many years. As exports have opened up and NAFTA has happened, we have been positioned to become the largest exporter of grain from the United States to Mexico. Largest exporter by rail, and much of that goes through Kansas. Much of that comes from Kansas, and this facility is designed to help leverage more of that production in Kansas. So it's an exciting opportunity for us, and hopefully there's more to come. So I'll pause with that.
All right, any questions? Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that presentation. I had a question about, I know that we're still jockeying and manipulating the tariffs, but do you have any feeling for what's going to happen with export?
I've got to be cautious about this. No, I don't. I don't care. I'm 71. What are they going to do to me, right? Well, I'm somewhat amused. I say, 51 years ago, I worked in Topeka for Senator Dole once upon a time, and I look at this, and this is an interesting moment. There are 125, 130 million people in Mexico, and their production is sufficient for 6 months a year? Maybe, as their population grows. They just don't have that much tillable acreage, you know. It's semi-arid in many areas, and where they do have production capacity, they're growing higher value crops on it, avocados and fruits and vegetables. So the U.S. is very important to them. They're our second largest agricultural trading partner, and the significance of it is the U.S. production agriculture can lay corn into Mexico on a more cost-effective basis, first, than they can grow it themselves, and secondly, than they can bring it from South America or wherever. So there is a profound logic and symbiotic relationship. And we speak with the congressional delegation frequently. We are hopeful, and I think it is an imperative for both our farmers, our producers, and Mexico, and we have to believe that this isn't about agriculture. I think it's about auto parts and the border and other things. And as these responses, there seems to be good communication taking place now. I can't speak to Canada. That's sort of a mystery to me, but and their reactions and shutting off electricity. But I'm optimistic, very hopeful that this will be sorted out. But I think there's going to be a lot of noise about this for a bit. What's your opinion? It's worth more, every bit as much as mine.
I think I'll just concur with you and quit there.
Okay.
Representative Lex.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Bill, for being here. This plant is located about 15 miles northeast of my house, and pretty much a lifelong resident of Montgomery County. And it has really spurred economic development in our poor county, I guess. We're seeing developers of housing now have an interest. The spinoff of this is going to be phenomenal. And prior to them coming in, the only option for us was, near 1,000 bushels of soybeans heading to the port of Catoosa. And this has shut down traffic quite a bit on 169 going south with they're taking them to your plant. And I have a question. Local producers, can they just drop in as like they would at a normal elevator, or do they need a contract with you guys?
Spot delivery?
Yep.
I assume they can.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Actually, we've invested heavily in that. So by the time a truck gets its tires onto our property, they're weighed in, unloaded, and weighed out in about 10 minutes. So producers can either call ahead and contract with us, or just show up and get our spot bid and dump beans that day.
And follow up on that, I've heard a lot of good comments from local producers. You guys, your payment schedule's a little bit higher than some of the other local elevators, so it has put a lot of dollars in there. And it's just been a really, it's exciting to see that kind of a development. And sometimes we look at that little incubator, and it's not little, I guess, when you look 440 million, but how that impacts other attitudes of other business people in the area. And like I say, it's just, I spent most of my life there, and it seems to be a lot of depression every year going down. And this has been the spark plug that's really pulled that around. Appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you for that.
Thank you. We pride ourselves on getting money out the door quick to our producers, and we want our producers to be successful as well, because we need that strong relationship long-term. It's a long-term partnership both ways.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you guys for being here. One comment and a question. Mr. Webster, if you would go up the Verdigris River and to the divide between the Neosho and the Verdigris River, you would find that I have proof that your farm doesn't have a monopoly on rocks or thistles. And my question is, you're into this now, you're open and you're running. Southeast Kansas does not have a real long or deep history of really robust infrastructure. But this plant is going to be here for way more than 50 years. I don't know what the lifespan really it's built for, but I'm sure it could be rebuilt and last even longer than that. What infrastructure needs have you been able to identify since you opened the plant, and what public policy have you been able to identify any public policy changes that really need to be in place as we look forward in the next 50 years?
Well, I'm not sure 50 years from now I'll still be involved in it, but it's a great question. In terms of the longevity of the facility, I'd just say our Coffeyville flour mill is the oldest in the United States. And so large operating mill. So we tend to take, after 118 years, a long view, and this facility is built, all the grain structures are built out of concrete, which may not be there as long as the pyramids, but are likely to be there for quite a while. So we do take, as a privately held company, a long view, and I don't want to be glib about that. In terms of infrastructure, there were some challenges with infrastructure. We committed to a substation there that would be sufficient for our facility, our growth electrical substation, and this potential project to the north. And Evergy assisted us in that. And there is an large commercial economic development incentive that Evergy can offer, which is like 40% off of rack rate for 5 years. And they offered that to us because of what we're doing. So that is a policy, and we think that's was an incentive as part of our due diligence. Natural gas, we built a 7-mile line with Southern Star, which we paid for, and Independence assisted us on a water line, which basically comes through their water plant out of Elk City and the Verdigris. And we spent about $11 million on that line, which will also, can be a backstop for the rural water district and also for growth to the north. So we've invested in some infrastructure. From a policy, if I put on a different hat, I was on the board of directors of the Kansas Chamber for 14 years, and we know that there is a strong focus on tax policies and regulations, and those are things for the entire business climate. I don't think it's unique to Southeast Kansas. But those are important as we see the states that we're competing with that in some cases are eliminating taxes. And we want to be competitive and still maintain, obviously, our schools and our colleges and universities and community colleges and all the rest. But I would just say we're not looking for Bartlett things. We're looking for what's best for the state and what's best for agriculture. If it benefits agriculture and we have strong producers and their families, that's the best thing you can do.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
you,
you.
Chair.
Representative Mosier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Could you give
you.
us a quick timeline from when the project got approved and you got financing and how long the construction took? Because you said it opened in September of last year.
September
Yeah.
19th. Yes. Okay. This started in March of 2021, and with some discussion internally, and that led to a summer effort to begin to do site selection and look at multiple locations. That led to our discussions with Kansas in the fall and identifying property. We put an option on the property in October, I want to say, October of 2021. The Montgomery County Commission, and this doesn't happen, but it did happen. They have the ability to issue bonds. We guarantee it. It's not the county's money, but it is a tool that the state has to allow us to get a sales tax exemption on the construction. The county commission said, we went and made a presentation, and they said to the county attorney, how quickly can we move? Now, I won't mention any other very large counties in particular, but I'll tell you it takes more than a month. It can take a year. And they said, well, we got to publish it twice. We think we can have a hearing in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, it was approved. That tells you the kind of community support. Then we came to the state. We met with the Department of Commerce, and Representative Kelly unlike, he knows everybody, and they know, and he said, well, let's go talk to this person. And so that all unfolded in real time. We closed the property in March. Our efforts with the Department of Commerce were done. We met with IDOT just to kind of brief them on what the 500 to 800 trucks a day that might be coming. We broke ground in June of 2022, and it was completed 26 months later.
More? How far out, what's the radius of the soybeans coming into the facility?
That's a good question. By truck, we're pulling from 100 to 150 miles, just depending on our bid structure and our needs at any given time. The highways make a big impact. We do have what I'd call competition in Wichita, in Emporia, in Deerfield, and then the Port of Catoosa as well. But it's really stretched. I'd say anywhere, probably a 6-county radius around us in the state of Kansas has a direct impact truck into our facility. But soybeans are coming from all over the state as well as across the Midwest into the facilities.
And from
Okay,
Kansas?
Kansas as far west as the Colorado border. We're pulling northwest Kansas, west central Kansas, all the way down to southwest Kansas. Any producers that have access essentially to a rail line or rail connectivity, we have a bid structure that's impacting their profitability for sure. Yeah, we're buying quite a bit of beans in Scott City and Great Bend specifically at our facilities there, and working with co-ops in the surrounding areas that flow into Cherryvale.
What percentage are from producers and what from co-ops?
The state, from producers, we're probably around 20 to 30%, with another 20 to 30% from co-ops coming into our facility today. Yeah,
So you have unit trains coming in?
we do have unit trains coming in. Yeah, and that's obviously the most efficient mode of transportation coming in terms of fuel use, safety-wise, and things like that. Yeah.
And one last question, how many employees do you have?
We have 70 team members on site today. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Our wages range from $26 an hour to about $56 an hour. So good wage for the neighborhood. As far as track is concerned, on site, we have about 3.5 miles of track. So enough for 2 full unit trains.
Representative Roth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just comment or two. This is just really exciting to see something like this take place, and you're in Kansas, and it's benefiting Kansans and actually benefiting people around the world. And so that's really, in my opinion, just a wonderful event for Kansas, and thank you for choosing Cherryvale. Unfortunately, Representative Blex is over there, but that's all right. He's a good guy. And secondly, just for the good of the committee, anybody with the name of Webster is a person of integrity. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'll tell my wife that tonight. Yeah.
Matter of opinion, I believe. All those in favor, signal. Representative Schlingensieben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for your presentation today. I'm just curious. It says Bartlett, a Savage company. Could you tell me a little something about Bartlett's relationship to the Savage company? As Bartlett's a private company and has been around
Both
since.
are private, yeah.
They're both private. So
Bartlett started in Kansas City in 1907. And we're Board of Trade and have been a grain merchandiser literally since. In 2000, and it was a closely held family business with the Bartletts, and have been trading and predominantly in Kansas since that period of time. We have 24 million bushels in Wyandotte County of storage, so we have 2 very large facilities. In Sedgwick County, we have 15 million bushels of storage, and then other, whether it's Atchison or Scott City or Great Bend. So we've been in Kansas for many years. In 2018, we merged with a company out of Utah called the Savage. They were 3 brothers that started a company almost 80 years ago, and they were more trucking and logistics and moving product around. And they have a strong presence in Kansas as well. They work inside of energy facilities, CVR, in Coffeyville, Holly, I have a new name now, I know, in El Dorado. And so they have a strong historical presence in Kansas as well, kind of inside the fence. And so we merged, the 2 families merged, and then it took until 2021, 3 years later, and they said, well, we deal with energy stuff, and you deal with grain. Is there any intersection? And that led us to crush oil. And that's, but for that, we'd probably not be with this. We'd be making flour for Krispy Kreme donuts and Eggo waffles, and I like those too. But that's the history of it, and it's still privately held. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Representative Droege?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of in the weeds, but I was in a discussion the day before yesterday about increasing the drilling for oil in the United States with the new administration. And so I thought, well, we have plenty of oil, and I was told, yes, we have quite a bit of oil, but we don't have enough heavy crude, which is so important for aviation fuel. They were talking about even the Permian Basin or the Bakken, there wasn't going to be enough heavy crude, so they were going to looking at turning toward the oils that you're talking about supplying to the aviation industry. And I guess I hadn't thought we were running out of heavy crude, and led me to that question. Have you thought about that, or
You're
discussed
closer to
it?
those topics than I am.
Yeah, and obviously, Kansas being a strong energy state and Savage, our mother company, being a strong energy company as well. What I think this does, you're familiar with the ethanol industry, the biodiesel industry that are already pretty well established. It just further solidifies the supply chain of liquid fuels in the United States specifically. These are blended products. It's not a full-on replacement. It's a drop-in replacement for certain percentages to lower that carbon intensity score. Also just gives more security to the volumes that we can produce in the U.S. through different means of production. So as we shift from crude drilling and production that way, higher bio-based blends going into those, it all kind of comes together, and that's why you've seen investments from the energy industry into these spaces as well. Through Holly Sinclair, like Mr. Webster explained, ExxonMobil, CVR Energy has invested as well, including Marathon. So they have all invested in this space as well to diversify their supply chains on the types of energy products that they're supplying in the liquid-based fuels. If that answer makes sense for you.
And we'd like to see that in Kansas as well.
Other questions? I think you came in at the right time. As far as with the crush plant, there are a lot of folks who were excited about it, ready to grab on with this kind of next generation of biodiesel. I know it's probably not a politically correct question to ask, but I will. I mean, are you concerned that in the region that we have too many crush facilities? Because if you're drawing all the way from Scott City to meet your needs, you know, and I'm guessing one of your markets is for the poultry business, you know, working closely with Tyson. It's just one of those things that I've always been a little concerned about, much like when the ethanol boom happened, we were putting ethanol plants in places that were corn deficient. Now, you're in the right spot if you would to bring it, say, to my hometown, and maybe that's where the next satellite will be. No, but just from Bartlett, from the way you look, are you concerned that other, quote, competitors in your region may hurt your opportunity, say, to expand? If some of the uncertainty we're seeing right now with renewables and where exactly it's going to play from a federal policy and a federal investment standpoint?
Well, our facility is not dependent on, we don't get any money from the federal government. We're not dependent on that. Now, some of our producers participate in emergency programs or various programs, but that doesn't affect us. Particularly, one of the things we did was to spend an additional almost $40 million to make sure that this was not just a facility to create a crush oil that would be a 100% drop-in for diesel. So it's not a blend, it's not a biodiesel, it's a 100% replacement for diesel fuel. But we also spent another almost $40 million to make sure that it could also be used for a food grade. And we don't see demand for that abating. So we built this specifically so that we would have flexibility. It can serve either let's call it the energy market or the food grade market. And so that's why we're always watching and concerned, but we are obviously all in, and it's opening and operating full tilt as we speak. Prospectively, we have domestic homes from meal, but because of where we put it with these railroads, we can sell every pound of this meal to Mexico, where we operate rail shuttle receivers. And as a result of that, we believe that we have enough flexibility to be able to be one of the survivors. But we think for these facilities that are well-built, well-constructed, well-maintained, there will continue to be a strong, viable need.
Very good. Mr. Barr, do you want to comment?
No, I think that was a good response. Obviously, the rail infrastructure was key in why we cited this where we did, was to connect both supply and demand points long term. I think one of the things about these facilities is if you believe in the continued uplift of the world into the middle class, protein consumption continues to climb. That's why the majority of the products coming off of this facility go towards feeding those chickens, those hogs, those beef, and providing better nutritional value to the developing world, that being Mexico, where we are today, also going into Asia, Latin America, and other countries like that. And no country in the world is better at doing that than the United States, especially the United States producer. And so that's why people come to the U.S. when they need a reliable supply of those feed sources for their food industry. And that's really why this is sourced, and that's why we've invested heavily in this industry.
Okay. From a plant standpoint, an infrastructure standpoint, getting there, roads, you say you do get unit trains in and out, do a lot of rail, but I know one of the concerns was, it's good and bad around Cherryvale. You're not right on the river. You're not necessarily have 4-lane roads, but truck, you probably already know what truck traffic is. What, from a state standpoint, we're curious of, is it meeting your infrastructure needs as far as, the 18-wheelers and the other ins and outs of getting the goods in and out? Yeah.
Work in progress.
Okay.
400, I mean, US 400 is a good road in our neighborhood. 169 has been upgraded significantly in recent years. 160 has a budget for it, and certain things are going to happen. It's never quick enough. It doesn't have shoulders, but we did get support, regionally support, and there was a budget allocation, and Representative Blex has, I can probably detail it more than I can, but as I recall, it was $60 or $70 million to upgrade the 160 corridor from 169 east. And that's critical, and it's critical for the school buses. It's critical for the traffic there. Every part of the state has critical needs, but that is a road that has work to do. And that's important for us. The county is requesting, has something pending, an economic development grant that would make some improvements on the county road to the north. And if the sustainable aviation fuel facility were to come, then that would be critical. I mean, I don't know that they would come unless we could improve that road. It's 3/4 of a mile, and it's currently not a paved road. It's a county road.
Sure.
So that's important. The other kind of governmental topic, and I'll be very brief on it, for SAF to work, there's a federal component that's floating out there, as you well know, but we also, now some states are getting into that mix, and we don't focus much on Illinois or Minnesota or California or Oregon, or Washington State rather, but now Nebraska has jumped in a big way and has a facility that's been announced, and we think that credit was part of that motivation. It was not money from the state per se, but it's a credit. And so that could be a topic at some point, but that's for that company to raise with the state.
All right, very good. Representative Mosier, then Representative Blex, so yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick questions. I'm working with Central Valley Ag up in Republic County to try to get a turning lane on 36 Highway on their grain shuttle facility. Do you guys have a turning lane off of your main thoroughfares into your facility for the semis?
there is what I would call a well-improved intersection at 169 and 160 that has a turning lane. And so there, the answer is yes. Not on 160, but as part of the proposed improvement, they're looking at widening that. And we're familiar with the intersection you just referenced on 36, and that would be good. That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, because the traffic on 36 is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything.
We
And-
do have it on 169, and that makes a lot of difference.
Okay, one more question, then I promise I'm done. What percentage of the soybean oil goes to renewable fuels, and what percentage goes to the food grade? Do you have a rough guesstimate?
So today, 100% is going to renewable fuels. We're currently working on our food grade certification. That's a 90-day audit process that concludes at the end of May. And then going forward from there, I'd suspect about 60 to 70% will go to food grade. We have those supply chains developed and those relationships through our milling company already. And we really like those relationships, see them as long-term partnerships. It'll obviously be market driven, but that's kind of where I'd suspect it shakes out over the next few years as we continue to merge those opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Representative Blex.
Thank you. I guess when you really look back, and I'm sure Bill will agree with me, that past Representative Jim Kelly was probably the greatest asset we had to get this thing rolling. But I've never seen so much working so well together partnerships. KDOT has just been phenomenal. They're talking 4-lane from 400 down to the state line. Certainly 160 to the east is right now a disaster, and a lot of the trucks are projected to come in from that eastern area. So that is a challenge, but you know, that's going to be taken care of. There's some commitments there, not as fast as we'd like, but there are commitments. You know, everybody has been involved, you know, from the water project to 14-inch line from the water treatment plant from Independence serves that. Some concern about water issues and that, and I know you guys got some plans for potentially recycling or reuse of water, which that was brought up as conservation. It is really, in my opinion, and I'm not certainly an expert in this area, but from standing back and looking at it, I think I've never seen the parties work really so well. Not that there hadn't been challenges, and most of those challenges has been in timelines of regulations, getting the stuff done as fast as you'd like to spend the money, and that's always a challenge. But you know, I think the road issue is covered, and certainly the rail line, which I can remember Watco, they would come from Chanute and they'd stop in Thayer, and the engineers would get out and eat lunch at the local steakhouse, and that train had sat there forever. And then it went, after it got started, it may have moved 15 miles an hour. I mean, you get out and almost walk. And so the upgrades that we've had with heavyweight rails and the amount of money is going to be tremendous once that all gets in place. So it has really worked well together. I think a poster card example of state, federal, and private company partnerships that have brought together and put this all together. And another thing, that even if the aviation company doesn't come for the aviation fuel, there's also rumors that CVR, Caulfield Resources, the refinery that has an existing footprint in Coffeyville, as well as a fertilizer plant, is rumored to start an aviation fuel facility, which might actually be even better. It wouldn't be quite as convenient, but at the same token, the end result is another market. So thank you for that, Bill, and certainly the Bartlett Company. You guys have invested a lot of dollars, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much. It was the Kansas City, Lawrence, and Galveston Railroad that was built in 1877. So it was one of the very early railroads in the state. And I'm not sure a lot had been done to it since it was built. It didn't go to Galveston. It stopped at Coffeyville. But then it was the BN. So they've been great. They've been great.
All right, well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Sure appreciate it. Great success story of Kansas business, Kansas agriculture, so private company even better. So thank you for your investments, and good to know that you're on your own and you're not you know, you're not the one-trick pony waiting for that oil. That was one of my concerns is some of those built just for the biofuel market that may or may not be as lucrative as what we might have thought. So thank you again so much. Okay, committee, again, our next meeting will be Monday, March the 17th. We'll have a hearing on House Bill 2268. It is a natural resources bill. And what we will do is we will do emergency final action. We will plan on working that bill immediately after we hear it. There's a companion bill that's in the Senate right now, a mirror bill basically that is on general orders today. So just so you know, hopefully the meeting, that's all we have scheduled, and then that will be our last meeting before we go on the floor. So with that, we are adjourned.